Hello and welcome. In today's video I want to go over how the oil is routed around the R53 W11 B16 engine block. So on the side here normally you would have your oil pump. Obviously that's removed at the moment because we have a bare block, but the oil pump feed goes through this hole here. It comes out where I've got this pipe cleaner on the lowest larger hole where your oil filter housing normally is. That goes into here. This is the one with the spring loaded plunger in for the pressure. Then comes along and it comes out of this hole here. That's which leads to your oil cooler, whether it's a remote one, a factory one, or whether you want to put something different in. It then returns into this hole here, which comes into the large cavity for your filter, through the filter and into this brass tube. Once it goes through that brass tube, it releases into this chamber here. This is the same chamber that has your oil pressure switch on. That then goes into the larger hole which feeds your chain tensioner, and it also feeds all the oil galleries. There's also this cavity here which is spring loaded up here on that chamber, and the idea behind that is if the pressure just gets too much it releases all the pressure back into the sump. That's a very simple quick overview of the R53 oiling system. Obviously it gets a lot more complicated inside because it runs through all the oil squirters and you've got a few other runs for your crank, but that's the main one that most people will want to know when they're plumbing in their wax valves for their oil coolers or rerouting oil systems and filters. Fitting the oil lines to an R53 turbo conversion. If you want to go and do that, you've obviously got to feed the oil to the turbo and return oil from the turbo. There's plenty of different ways of doing this. The most common way, and I've seen most, is you get an adapter, and that adapter fits to the back of your oil filter housing where this switch goes for your pressure. So you unscrew that, fit this in, you've then got this port here which you can tee off, and it just moves your pressure switch back. The only downside with doing that I've noticed, having done it once before, is it just sits a bit far back and it's a bit of a strain on the cable. So this time around I've decided to not use this. There is a small boss on the side of the filter here. So this time around what I've decided is I've opened it up, machined it, and I've decided to take my feed for the oil off the side of the housing. This is the correct area to take this from. This is the return after the oil's been to the filter. So this is the most filtered point of oil that you can take off. There isn't really a convenient place on the block that you could take from because it was never intended to be turbocharged. So that's my preference for taking the feed. You can, if you want, fit a complete remote oil system. If you were going to do that, this here where the green pipe is showing is your feed from your pump, and then the one above it is your return back into your oil galleries. So you would want, after filtering, you would want to be returning to the top. The next part you need to do is, once you've got the oil to your turbo, you need to get it back away from your turbo. So on the sump, the most common place to do that is this part here. So get a weld boss and put that on and return the oil there. I decided not to do that because the downside of putting your oil return point there is you actually have to remove your power steering fan. Now if you're okay with that, just go with it. This is the most convenient place to do it. For me, I welded on my boss onto the front here. I don't have aircon. If I'd had aircon, this would have been in the way here. So for me, this is a relatively convenient place for this to go. So my oil returns there. It's where I had it last time, and I'm going to continue to run it that way. So that's a quick overview of where I'm taking my oil feed and my oil return for my turbo. For sizing, it depends on your turbo. Generally, all of your feeds are done in -6 from here down your braided lines. It's always good to run a filter. I tend to run a second filter, which is a 30 micron filter, which is in line, that I can take out every time I do a service just to make sure that's okay, and generally replace the the fine filter that's in there. The turbo itself has got a -4 restrictor on anyway, so I just oversized the oil to it, and it seems to have worked well in the past. So that's a quick overview of how I'm routing the oil. It worked previously with that here. So I don't see why it wouldn't work there. There's enough pressure, it feeds the oil well, it's a convenient place, and it would have been nice if they'd actually made it solid so I didn't have to weld it up and machine it, but that seems like a nice place that doesn't foul with the starter motor, the oil system for a turbo R53 as I'm building it. Thank you for watching.